A sneaky big signing by the Phoenix Suns as they are signing former Denver Nugget Collin Gillespie to a two-way contract. The young point guard is going to be joining the Suns team, but does that mean that GM James Jones is done making moves? There are some other free agent targets that are still available as free agency is up and running, and we are going to break it all down for you guys right here on Suns Digest. My name is CJ Pierre. Thanks for joining us. It has been a crazy couple of days as free agency started last night and into Monday, and it is going to be a fun time. We are excited about the moves that the Suns are making because they are going to have an impact. But before we get into the nitty gritty with this two-way deal, we noticed that about 78% of you guys are watching our videos, and we appreciate that. But you haven't subscribed to the channel yet. We are inching ever so close to that goal of 1,000 subscribers. If you want to make sure you're keeping up to date with all the latest Suns news, rumors, and updates as we get into free agency, hit that subscribe button so you don't miss a thing that we've got cooking for you guys. So sit back, relax. We got a good one for you as we break down as Collin Gillespie joined the Suns on a two-way deal. Now, I mentioned at the start of the video that this is a sneaky big move that the Suns are making, but it can be important. Many of you may not know of Collin Gillespie, so we are going to break down some news about this young point guard that the Suns are bringing in. I know we've been talking point guard, point guard, point guard. Now, this isn't necessarily what we've been talking about. He probably won't be the starting point guard for the upcoming season, but you'll understand that once we get into the news. First, Woj, Adrian Wojnarowski, of course. Breaking down the news, free agent guard Collin Gillespie has agreed to a two-way deal with the Suns, as sources tell ESPN. If just getting into a little bit about Gillespie, he was a undrafted rookie in the 2022 NBA draft. He signed as an undrafted free agent with the Denver Nuggets, but unfortunately, he ended up missing his entire rookie season with Denver while he was recovering from surgery to repair a fractured right leg. He returned to action last season, making 24 appearances before he had to be shut down after suffering a left knee sprain. Now, Gillespie is presumably healthy after passing a physical to make his deal official, this two-way contract deal, but he's certainly not guaranteed a rotation role with Phoenix in the 2024-2025 season. And I personally kind of have to agree with that assessment. Gillespie is not someone who has a lot of experience in terms of the NBA ranks, only playing in 24 games. When we take a look at his stats over those games, he only averaged about 3.6 points per game and about 1 assist per game. Now, obviously, that's in limited minutes, spot minutes, but Gillespie has some really good attributes, really good skills. He's a solid shooter. He's a really good ball handler. He's a good passer, and we're going to get into that when we talk more about where he really excelled when he was in college. He shoots about 50% on his corner threes and shooting 39% from three-point range overall. That is kind of the perfect fit for a project that's going to be in new head coach Mike Budenholzer's offense. But if you really want to get to know Gillespie and see what he's worth and what his skill set can provide, we have to look at his college stats. Now, he went to Villanova, a national powerhouse, where he was a star player on this really good Villanova teams. He was on a championship team in 2018, but he stayed all 4 years over the course of his time in college, and he was a major factor in what they became once he received a significant playing time. If we take a look at his senior year over there on the right hand side, he averaged 15 points per game. He also averaged about 3 assists per game, and he averaged about 4 assists per game during his junior and his other senior year. Remember, in college, a lot of guys over the course of the COVID season got an additional year. That's when you're looking at that. So Gillespie has some solid attributes, and he's going to contribute to the Suns in minor ways. He's probably going to, on that two-way contract, he'll spend a lot of time in the G League, most likely, but there is a likelihood that he will see some time on the NBA level, potentially in some garbage time. And if there are some injuries, he could have an opportunity to showcase his skills. Now, he's got the injury bug himself. 2 seasons ended due to injury. One, he missed his entire rookie year because of an injury. But if he's healthy and if he's able to remain healthy, he has an opportunity to be a significant factor into what the Suns end up doing over the course of the season. Could he find some playing time? It's possible. Will he, like I said, I don't think he'll end up being the starting point guard, but could he play his way into a reserve role? I think it's possible. We'll have to see what he does in camp. We'll have to see what he does during the preseason and what strides he's able to make in the G League once he starts playing with in the Valley. Now, that doesn't mean that the GM James Jones is done. My buddy Bruce talked about the Mason Plumlee signing. That's big, getting that backup big. And this Gillespie news kind of fills a little bit of a void in terms of the point guard role, but it's not necessarily the main move that the Suns are going to make. As we know, Gerald Bourgeois has talked about the fact the Suns still have some free agent targets that are available, particularly in at the point guard spot. And again, we've talked about it, point guard, point guard, point guard. The Suns are going to be eyeing adding a veteran point guard to the mix. As I mentioned, Gerald Bourgeois, he said, can confirm, this is a tweet that he had, that the Suns are honing in on a point guard. For a source, they ruling out guys like Cam Payne and a return to Phoenix, and Reggie Bullock, who's not a point guard, but there are reports that the Suns are interested in him as well. Bourgeois talking about more interest on Chris Dunn, Monte Morris, and Kyle Lowry, with Dunn being the Suns' number one target. Other teams can offer Dunn more money, so he may be tough to get. Now, we've talked about a few of those names before in the past, and the Suns could be targeting. They could be good additions to the team. So let's break them down one by one. Let's start with Chris Dunn. Last season, he spent in Utah. He is more of a defensive first point guard, but does have the ability to be a facilitator. He's been in the league for a while. He's 30 years old, veteran guy, and really has really improved and settled into his role compared to what he was when he was playing in Minnesota and in Chicago. Last year in Utah, he averaged 5 points per game, about 3.8 assists per game in a backup role. And he is someone that teams really liked what they saw from him over the course of last year. Utah really liked him. There's a chance that they may try and make sure they can re-sign him. But it's really going to come down to what Chris Dunn sees in terms of what his ability is. The Suns may have to just go ahead and tell him, look, we'll throw you out there with Devin Booker, Kevin Durant, and Bradley Beal, and you'll be the starting point guard on this team and playing 30 minutes per game if you come in here for a vet minimum. They may have to offer him that. Will other teams put him into a similar role? Possibly not. But the Suns, they kind of have that gap. If Mike Budenholzer is willing to say, hey, I'm going to run with a point guard and maybe bring Grayson Allen off the bench, that may be something that they may have to offer Chris Dunn if they want to bring him on board. The next name on that list, we've talked about him a lot, Kyle Lowry, one of the guys that the Suns might want to target in free agency. In terms of the guys that are on this list, these 3 point guards we're going to talk about, Kyle Lowry is the best shooter of the bunch, and he may fit in as well. He may fit in pretty perfectly in terms of what Mike Budenholzer wants to do. Downside is Lowry's a little bit older. He's 38 years old. Probably not going to be able to give you somewhere like 30 minutes per game. It's probably going to be closer to 20. When you talk about Kyle Lowry, you're probably almost guaranteeing someone that's going to be in a more reserved role. Last year with Philadelphia 76ers, averaging 8 points per game, 4 assists per game, again in that reserve role of limited minutes, but look at the shooting numbers. 39% on 3-point shots, including 45% on corner threes. Kyle Lowry could be a solid fit. Now, he'll have to definitely fit into the rotation probably in a more reserve role. That means maybe not having a facilitator as often on the floor with the big three. Probably having more lineups that involve Grayson Allen and Yusuf Nurkic, maybe Royce O'Neal instead of Grayson Allen in some respects, or maybe the Suns opt to go more small. Then maybe that gives Lowry a chance to be out there in maybe closing game scenarios. You have a lineup of like Lowry, Beal, Booker, Royce O'Neal, and Kevin Durant potentially. If they want to run with that, we'll have to see what Budenholzer does and how the rest of the roster shakes out. Last name on this list that we haven't necessarily talked about much on this podcast, but is making the rounds, and that's Monte Morris. Now, Monte Morris is an interesting uh, target. He's the youngest of this group. He's 29, and he's a solid shooter. Not as consistent as a Lowry would be, in my opinion. He does average 38%. He did average 38% on his threes last season, shooting 47% on corner threes, averaging 5 points per game. But Morris also split time last season with the Detroit Pistons and the Minnesota Timberwolves, being on that Timberwolves team that swept the Suns in the first round of the NBA playoffs last season. But Morris is definitely the prototypical backup point guard. He's definitely not someone who I can see playing 30 to 34 minutes a game as a starter. He's definitely someone who you want more in a reserve role, playing somewhere in the neighborhood of 15 to 20 minutes. He's a really good ball handler and has some ability attacking the basket. He's probably the best mid-range shooter of the three guys in this range, but he's not really super consistent. He was struggling with injuries last year and never really was able to really find his flow even once joining the Minnesota Timberwolves. Also, I know for a fact that the Minnesota Timberwolves are interested in bringing Morris back, so it may be some difficulty bring him into the fold as well. If you only are going to offer him the veteran minimum, he may be looking for a position where he is seeing more minutes himself. But I don't know if that necessarily would make the best fit for the Suns in terms of the fit. In terms of the guys we talked about, I really like Chris Dunn. I like his motor and the ability that he would be able to present on the defensive end. I really think he should be the Suns' number one option. I just think it will be difficult if other teams offer him more. I think Kyle Lowry is the next best fit. He's a solid backup point guard, really good shooter, veteran presence, championship winning guy, and I think he would fit well with the Suns. And I would round out Morris in the third spot in terms of that role. And then when you factor in the Collin Gillespie news, maybe he factors in to the rotation as well. We'll have to wait and see. That's just what I think. Let us know what you guys think in the comments below. Do you like the Collin Gillespie signing, and who do you think the Suns should target in free agency? We're going to have much more coming over the course of this week with you guys as free agency continues to chug along. Who else are the Suns going to add to this roster? What changes are they going to make? Are there going to be any trades? We're going to break it all down for you guys. We'll have everything for you right here on Suns Digest. So make sure you click that subscribe button so you don't miss a single thing. Breaking news, latest free agency updates. We'll have it all for you guys. But that's all the time I got for you today. We are going to catch up with you guys next time. The next time the Suns make a move, you will find out what it is right here on Suns Digest. Thanks for joining me. I really appreciate you guys. Let's reach that goal of 1,000 subscribers and go Phoenix Suns.